Today we're going to be talking about the categories, an important topic in traditional logic. We're going to be going through such things as the category of essence, quantity, quality, relation, place, time, position, habit, action, and passion. Hi, I'm the Amateur Logician from amateurlogician.com, and one of my missions is to become more logical. And traditional logic is a powerful way to do just that. Now, in general, organizing our thoughts as part of traditional logic is about defining and categorizing terms, forming judgments and propositions, and, of course, reasoning. Traditional logic has been viewed as a tool to know. In fact, Aristotle's lecture notes on logic is called the organon, the instrument. It's the instrument to know, for example, the natures of things. That is, what things are. Logic helps us figure out causes, why things are the way they are. Now, the categories are the ultimate descriptive predicates. The most famous type of proposition in logic deals with subject-predicate propositions. So the predicate describes something about the subject. For example, Socrates is a man is a subject-predicate proposition. The subject is Socrates, the predicate is being a man. Now, Aristotle and his followers attempted to exhaustively find all possible predicates a subject can take on. And Aristotle thought there were 10 possibilities, 9 different so-called accidents in one essence. Now, when we describe an individual, we often resort to so-called universal terms. Socrates is a man, for example, or Socrates is a philosopher. Socrates is old, Socrates is wise, Socrates is talking. Now, patterns emerge. This allows us to classify these different types of predicates. Frequently, we predicate a quality. For example, being wise and old are qualities. Or we predicate activities like talking or walking. Alternatively, we might refer to the essence, that is, what something is. Socrates is a man. That is what he is. He's not a dolphin, he's not a tree, he's not a rock. So subject-predicate propositions are a means to talk about what something is. For example, substantially. What is its nature, in other words? Socrates is a man, substantially. Or how something is, namely accidentally. For example, Socrates is of a certain height, or he is talking. Those are accidental features of Socrates. So the categories answer the question what. That is, what it is about the subject that the predicate tells us. Is it telling us its essence, or is it an accident? If it is an accident, what kind of accident? Now, the subject-predicate proposition can be a means to talk about what something is doing. This deals with action, place, or relation. So let's go down the list. We have the category of essence. That is, what the thing fundamentally is. For example, Socrates is a man. We have quantity, dealing with how much or spatial extension. For example, Socrates is 5 feet 7 inches, which, by the way, I totally made up. But that's a quantity, clearly. We have quality, what kind or what sort. For example, Socrates is wise. The predicate wise is a quality. We have relation, what it is like related to another. For example, Socrates is taller than Plato. That's a relation, which also I made up. I have no idea if Socrates is taller than Plato, or if he was taller than Plato. We have place, where is it? Socrates is in Athens, or at least he was. We have time, when is it? Socrates was born 470 BC. We have position, namely how is it situated? Socrates is sitting. Habit, being equipped in some way. For example, let's say Socrates is armed. Even wearing clothing would be a type of habit in this sense. So Socrates is wearing a shirt. That predication is of habit. We have action, which is an activity or doing. Socrates is talking. We're thinking about cause. But passion, we're thinking about effect. So undergoing or being affected. For example, Socrates is bruised. But this is also a question for philosophy of nature and metaphysics. So we have the basic categories of being. So on the one hand, we have substance or essence. Now, what is a substance? A substance is being in itself. So, for example, Socrates. Socrates is an individual term. It refers to the person Socrates. And this subject, Socrates, is a substance. And a substance is a thing that exists in itself. It is a being in itself. That is, it is that which exists in itself and not in another. So Socrates exists on his own as a unique individual apart from other things. He is one thing. Now, the category of essence refers to what kind of substance it is. So Socrates is fundamentally a man. But then we have the so-called accidents. So an accident we can think of as a being in substance. That is that which exists not in itself, but only in another. Take Socrates' height. It's an accident. It doesn't exist in itself, since it exists only as an attribute of the substance Socrates. In fact, all accidents depend upon substances. Without a substance to be in, so to speak, no accidents would exist. Yet accidents are not nothing. They are real determinants of a substance to be one way or another way. So Socrates will have a certain height, for example. This might make him tall or possibly short. But here we have 9 different types of accidents. We have quantity, quality, relation, time, place, passion, action, habit, and position. These we can predicate of a substance. So first off, for example, we have quantity. Now, being substantial nature is distinct from any of its quantitative features. So any particular zebra in the world is not identical, for example, to its mere height. Clearly, its quantitative dimensions depend upon the zebra's existence as a real object that can be measured. It exists in an extended way with height, width, and depth. This allows us to see the zebra. So we might say the material objects are measurable because they have extension, and extension allows for rough boundaries, and those rough boundaries are often measurable. In a certain sense, materiality brings quantity. It makes things concrete, so to speak. Now, if we think about quality, quality has been divided traditionally 4 different ways. We have things like disposition, or habit. We have power, or capacity. We have sensibles, and we have figure or shape. So a disposition or habit is an attribute that can be developed by some substances. Socrates can become skillful at debate. He can acquire virtues or vices. Now, powers or capacities are attributes that are of an ability. Man has the power to see. An eagle likewise has the power to see, though it is much stronger than our power. Matter, in general, so to speak, has the power to pull by having the force of gravity. That is, matter attracts matter. We have sensibles. Sensibles deal with attributes of a substance that we can observe with one of our external senses. For example, sight or hearing or smell, taste or touch. Scholastic terminology would call this a proper sensible. Seeing the red color of the flower, for example, is limited to the eyes, and the eyes have a limited scope, not only because they cannot detect things that other external senses can, but because only a narrow spectrum of light can be seen with them. Then we have figure or shape, that deals with the attributes of a substance that we can observe with more than one of our external senses. Hence, the scholastic terminology here would be common sensibles. Now, with common sensibles, we can perceive the shape of something, for example, by sight and touch. I can see and touch the figure of a tree, so we can observe the tree, and this is with more than one of our external senses. Another common way to predicate a substance is through a relation. Now, if we think about a relation, arguably we can say place, time, position, and habit are all types of relation. Because place, you have a relation between an object and its location. With time, you have a temporal relation. With position, we have a relation of the parts to the whole. For example, Socrates can be sitting Indian style, or he can be standing straight or genuflecting. And habit is to be equipped in some way. It's a relation between something and its very close environment. For example, the clothing someone wears. But it's also very fitting to have a category of action. And with action, for example, transient action and imminent action. A transient action is something that produces an effect outside of itself. So if I'm writing on a piece of paper with a pen, that's an effect outside of me, namely markings on the paper. An imminent action is something that produces an effect inside itself. As I form an idea in my mind, this action stays within me, so it's an imminent action. But also we can be affected by other things, so we have the category of passion. I hear music because the radio is on. I'm cooling down because of the air conditioner. The water is solidifying because the air in the freezer is sufficiently cold, and so on and so forth. So this is an introduction to the categories, an important topic in traditional logic. The categories are also called the predicaments. These are 10 categories that can be predicated of any subject. Subject is P. What can P be? Well, it could be an essence, a quantity, a quality, a relation, a place, a time, a position, a habit, an action, a passion. But there's also another subject called the predictables. Now, I have 2 pages on my website, amateurlogician.com. I have a whole page on the categories, the so-called predicaments, but also on the predictables, which is another important topic in logic. Now, if this video has been helpful to you in any way, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel, hitting the like button. You can also buy me, so to speak, a cup of coffee. There's a link below. I would appreciate that. It helps give me motivation to do more of this stuff. But in any case, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and be well.